Good evening, everyone. Um, so I was just before we got just before I was just speaking to Stephen before the call, and I was explaining I did a podcast. You guys will all know, but I was getting the name all mixed up, and I said to Steve every time I was looking at his name, I was going, I keep on saying it wrong. So we've decided to say Steve because if not, I'm gonna get myself tongue tied. So that's what we're gonna go with. So yeah, look, without further ado, we're gonna welcome Steve Wilson to the call. So welcome, Steve.
Oh yeah, you're right, everybody.
Everyone's nodded. So Steve, let's start. Where are you from? Where are you based?
I'm based in Bury St Edmunds in Suffolk, in between sort of Ipswich and Cambridge. Nice little historical town, and very sleepy and peaceful.
No, and I think you're basically neighbours to Andrew Big, aren't you? So
Not too far away, about 15, 17 miles, something like that. So not too far.
excellent. So I can see I can see a Suffolk meet up on the cards coming soon, then, which will be amazing.
There will be. Yeah.
Cool. Right. So let's start there. I always like to start at the most obvious question. Well, for me anyway. But can you run us through your diagnosis? When it was, what it looked like? What you remember of it?
Right. Well, I'm now 52. When I was 12, I was diagnosed, but the year before I was diagnosed, I had massive stomach pains and problems. And the doctor put it down to growing pains, would you believe? And they believe that now was the start of my diabetes. And it was my granddad who was a type 2 diabetic at the time. And back in those days, you had a little stick that you had to wee on that told you whether you had blood sugar or not, or sugar in your urine, and that's where I was diagnosed from. I was then straight into hospital, given an orange and a hypodermic syringe, big glass one with a 2-inch needle that I had to practice on. And yeah, obviously things have come a long way from there. I was a bit of an athlete as a child in 100 meters, 200 meters, high jump, long jump, hurdles. And I wanted to be a sort of professional athlete. But it sort of all came crashing down once I was diagnosed with diabetes. Used to play for the football team, but back in those days, control wasn't great. So that sort of all fell by the wayside, really, which is a real shame. Um, and I've evolved with it over the years. I started off with pork insulin. There wasn't any human insulin there. Then, when I was 18, 6 years later, the human insulin came out. I was told by the doctors that it's identical, you inject exactly the same. 3 days later, I was in a coma in hospital for 3 days. Then they sort of realized it wasn't the same. They had to change all my regimes and everything. So yeah, it was quite tough as a kid. Obviously, with your sugar levels, your mood swings change. Up and down like a fiddler's elbow in those days. Then sort of the blood testing kits became quite readily available and sort of came on from there really. So yeah, it's been a bit of a passage, and now I find myself completely dependent on the Libra review, to be honest. And since then, my HbA1c is now down to 6.5 over the last 2 years. So pretty good.
Oh, good effort. So I just want to backtrack a little bit there because we covered a lot of ground. But so I mean, when I in my short lifetime of living with type one, obviously the technology has improved massively, as you said. But for me, I always found it was difficult with pricking your finger. But I can only imagine how difficult it was, like doing a urine. I mean, it was very crude, wasn't it? Doing a urine strip. I mean,
It
ballpark. It
was,
was.
I mean, it's a case of you didn't have a digital scale. It didn't give you an app. It was just basically a bottle with a color chart on it. And that's what you put it against, and you sort of guessed roughly where you were, to be honest. Um, and the needles were glass syringes, and as a kid you used to drop them and break them, which was always a problem. It was proper, vial of pork insulin in the air, massive great big needle. You used to have to pull it out and put the exact dose in. You'd get air bubbles. It is over 40 years. It has evolved so rapidly. You know, we're talking 100 years ago. People probably used to die of
Yeah.
this condition, as I call it. And now, you know, with the lead review, you know, control is so easy now compared to what it was. And I'm quite lucky that I'm on sort of Humalog. So I go out, I have 100 carbs, I inject 1 unit for every 7 units of carbohydrate. So my blood sugar levels are virtually static the whole time. I'm on Traceba because you know, I don't do as much now as I used to, but I used to do a lot of activity, running, hiking, cycling. They put me on the Traceba because it was better for, you know, the overall long-acting control. So I'm still on that now. So yeah, I mean, back in the day, it was fraught. I put my mum through hell, put it like that.
Well, I bet it weren't easy. I'm sure. I mean, I can imagine. I can imagine how difficult it must have been. But to be honest, that listening to that there, I think every newly diagnosed diabetic should be able to should listen to someone like you, because I think it's a real, yes, you've been diagnosed with a condition that's going to affect the rest of your life, but you're probably in the best. If you're diagnosed today, you're in the best. You know, the best. It's probably the best time to be diagnosed in terms of the access to technology, the information that we've got available, etc. So, yeah.
Oh, without doubt, and as I said to Andrew and you earlier, reading all the data that's all the information that's coming out on those chats, that's up here, you know, compared to where I am. I sort of control what I've got, and you know, I don't have pumps. I still use the pens. I haven't got to that stage yet. Whether I ever will, I don't know. But you know, at the moment, everything seems to be good with the pens, to be honest.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, and I think it's a very it's a personal preference. I think with pens and pumps and whatnot. And if the pens work for you, great. I mean, they work for a lot of people. Work for me for many years. So yeah, you've got to find what's right for you, haven't you? Because
Yeah. I
the
think
pump doesn't always.
yeah, the biggest thing with me, I've worked in the motor industry for 28 years. I've worked for a lot of franchises, and it's just trusting technology, to be honest. Because a car, they go wrong, and with a pump, my main concern is what if it doesn't work as it should. Whereas with a pen, I know what I'm putting in, I know what's gone in, and in my mind, that works for me. And you know, I know someone that's got the pump, does a lot of running, and she loves it. So,
Yeah,
you know, everyone's different.
definitely. And I mean, I think what you said there, there's definitely for sure. I think every pump user here would agree that they're definitely more prone to errors, because there's just more errors. Like you said, with a pen and a needle, there's very little that can go wrong apart from forgetting your needles. So
That's it.
it's much
That's
more
it.
simplistic, definitely.
Yeah.
Just again, I just want to go backtrack a little bit there. But what was did you have any of the sort of the normal sort of textbook symptoms when you was diagnosed, like the excessive thirst and weight
Um,
loss and stuff like that?
yeah, it was first. You know, we'd go on holiday with mum and dad, and she would buy 6 cans of Coke because back in the day you didn't have Coke Zero and Diet Coke. It was Coke, and it was full of sugar. And I'd neck a whole 6 pack one after the other, and then I'd struggle. I'd get really emotional. I'd start crying. I'd be at the toilet every 5 minutes. I was up and down like a fiddler's elbow. I was climbing the walls. You know, I put them through that. They didn't enjoy the holidays before I was diagnosed because it was just constant. They thought I was attention seeking as a kid, but you know, basically I didn't really have a lot of control what was going on, to be honest. You
Mm.
know, and I was feeling ill, and then obviously when I'd done a lot of sport, I was then dropping low, which we know now. So I was getting again tired, lethargic, angry, you know, upset. And it was my granddad. You know, I was told it was growing pains by my doctor, and my granddad goes, "Come here, boy," and he gave me this stick, and he goes, "Get in there and wheel on it." And I came back, and they should stay yellow. It went black.
Oh,
So he just turned around, and my mum went, "He's a diabetic," and I can remember it now.
wow, that's
You
interesting.
know,
So it was your granddad. It was your granddad who sort of diagnosed
both
you.
of my granddads are type 2. So basically, it skipped a generation. And, you know, I've got an 18-year-old and a 22-year-old son, and they've not got it. So I'm wondering whether it's an extra generation after. Well, so my grandchildren, their kids, will they be at risk? You just don't know. But there's talk it is hereditary. But yeah, both granddads had type 2, so it sort of has been in the family.
So because I guess sort of back in the day as well, the awareness for diabetes probably wasn't quite there like it is now, and even now there is obviously a big job to do. But I guess really it was quite lucky that your granddad noticed that, because, like you said, I think them sort of mood swings is what kids do, isn't it? So unless you're sort of aware of it, it could quite easily go under the radar, couldn't it?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And bless him, he's 98. I went to see him on Tuesday. He's still
Oh
going
wow,
strong at
that's
98.
incredible.
Yeah, he's still walking, still got all his marbles. Bless him. So yeah, it's and he's type 2 diabetic, which he's had all of his life, and he's managed not to go to the next stage, or he's done well. He's done very,
Oh,
very well.
excellent. Oh, excellent. Okay.
He wanted to come up Killy with me, but I said he might not enjoy it quite as much. Bless him.
No, no, yeah, I can imagine. Right, let's move on to the big feat then. So, Kilimanjaro, where did that idea come from? And tell us a little bit about why you did it, and then we
Right.
can talk through the experience as well.
Sorry. Back in 2008, I started to get the travel bug. Having worked in the industry I do, you work a lot of hours and a lot of stress, a lot of pressure. And I decided, right, I've got to start doing something. And my first trip was the Inca Trail in Peru, which I go on my own. And I normally go with like explore or adventure people, and I meet up with complete strangers while I'm away. Sorry, hang on, the dogs. Meet up with complete strangers, but like-minded people, and went to Peru. Ended up going across the Inca Trail into Machu Picchu, which was just one of the most phenomenal things I've ever seen. Spent a couple of days in Machu Picchu, then came back and flew home. Then I went, I think, I can't remember the order I did it in, but I went to India, went to the Golden Triangle, traveled around Agra, Jaipur, Delhi, went to the Taj Mahal. So I then decided I wanted to do the 7 modern wonders of the world. So I'd done the Taj Mahal, I'd done Machu Picchu. So I went to the Colosseum with my partner, which was a nice European trip, which was lovely. And then did Jordan with Petra, and sort of snorkeling in the Red Sea and in the Dead Sea, stuff like that. And then I was meant to go to China for the Great Wall, which is another modern wonder, but COVID put a stop to that. Then I was on my way to Chernobyl, which isn't a modern wonder, but I was going to Ukraine to spend a week in the exclusion zone, and had access into the power station control room. But then 2 months before I was going there, Russia invaded Ukraine, so I never got there either. So I then decided I want to push it. It was my 40th anniversary of being a diabetic. I wanted to prove that I could do it. There's a 35% failure ratio on the mountain. And I thought, if I get up there, then job done, sort of thing. So I booked to go, yeah, and went.
So no sort of like, well, I don't know what training you'd have to do, but I mean, no preparation for it, or
There was a lot of I did a lot of running. I
right.
bought a stepper that I had in the garage that I was using to get sort of leg strength. I was doing core strength, arms, fitness. There was a lot of running, a lot of walking, a lot of hiking. And I lost about 1.5 stone in weight before I actually left, because I thought, I'm going to have to carry this body up this hill, so it's going to have to be in shape. So, got, and I will say, in 7 days, I also lost 2 stone in weight while doing it.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow, that's a lot of weight, isn't it?
we're
Wow.
burning over 5,000 calories a day.
Right. Okay. Wow. Okay. So, um, for someone who doesn't know anything about Kilimanjaro, obviously I know what it is, but what what um what does it look like going into it? Like what did you have with you? How long was you expecting it to take?
Right. The trip itself was based. Sorry, my dog's about to start barking. But the trip itself was an 8 day, meant to be 8 days on the mountain in total, and basically you fly into Moshi. I was doing it with a company called Almighty Kilimanjaro, who, if anyone wants to do it, I would highly recommend that any company you book the trip with use them, because I'll get to that in a little while. But you turn up in Moshi. I went via Doha onto Moshi, which is where the Kilimanjaro International Airport is. Landed there, got to the hotel, and I was met by Joseph, who was the lead guide, who was, without him, I don't think I'd have got there. The guy was amazing, absolutely amazing. And the first thing he did was check my kit. He looked at everything that I had, because the problem is you're at 30 degrees when you start in a rainforest, and when you get to the top, it was minus 22 degrees. So you've got
Wow.
to have everything you need from the bottom to the top.
Yeah.
You're only allowed to carry 7 kilos in weight during the day. That was quite difficult, because obviously I'm carrying medical kit, I'm carrying sort of dextrosol, Kendall mint cake, you name it, I had it, a backup blood testing kit. I obviously had my Libra on as well, but what I was worried about, at the temperatures I was going to be at the top, I was hoping that I wasn't going to have a problem with a failure, because on the Inca Trail, I only had one of the old blood testing kits because LibreView wasn't around. And when you got above 4,200 meters, it dropped to -5 and everything broke.
Mm.
It all just stopped working. So there was 3 days on the Inca Trail without even being able to test my blood. So I was very concerned about that. So I bought insulated packs for my blood testing kit so it would stop it freezing. Luckily, when you get cold, you're wearing layers, which kept the Libra clean. And I will say it didn't miss a beat the whole 6 days. It was, I'll get to that because I did it 2 days early. It didn't miss a beat the whole time. The guy, the lead guide, because when you go, you have to put in any medical problems, any medical history, anything like that. So they knew I was a diabetic, and I was so relieved that basically Joseph. Sorry, hang on. I just kicked the dog out. Hang on a
Yeah,
sec.
that's all right.
Hang on. Come on. Come on. Come on.
We can take this moment to all check our blood sugar. Blood glucose check.
Yeah. Sally, can you come get the dog?
How we doing? Below 5. Below 5. In between 5 and 7.5. Nice, Andrew. Well done.
He's an old dog, bless him. He'll stop in a second.
That's right. No worries.
Yeah, so when we got there, Joseph said, "Oh, I see you're diabetic. Have you got the alarms and the beepers?" And I went, "You know about those?" He said, "I've had 2 other diabetics on the trip." He said, "One thing I'm going to tell you now, your phone has to be switched on 24/7. I want your full alarms switched on. I want to be able to hear it. I want the volume turned up." He knew exactly what they're all about, and so that made me feel quite confident that the fact he knew what was occurring. He asked what needed to happen. I said, if I'm low, I need to eat. If I'm high, I need to inject. So he said, okay, what are your parameters? I was quite shocked, and I said, it's anything below sort of 4.5 is going to be a problem. And then I said, anything over sort of 11 or 12, if the alarms go off, then I'll deal with it. So we had a sort of arrangement before we actually set out onto the trail, which he was very, very good. And every time an alarm sounded, he stopped and he said, right, I want to see it, literally. So I'd show him and he goes, right, you need to inject. How much you, and he was literally concerned the whole time. And there was times during the actual climb, there was one night I was so tired I fell asleep. My alarm went off. I didn't hear it. I slept through it, even though the phone was right on my pillow. Next thing I know, there's the chef, Abu, because I had a team of people like that were with me. and Joseph were in my tent going, right, what's going on? What's going on? And I sort of looked at it and thought, God, it went down to 3.2 and the alarms have been going off. And he goes, right, do you want the chef to start cooking? I'm like, no, I'm fine. I'll deal with it. So he literally wouldn't leave the tent until I'd got back into sort of between 5 and 7. And I couldn't fault him. It sort of, he was fascinated with it as well and kept asking me questions. But to have someone that was that sort of like, he was just there to, the whole time making sure that my diabetes was all right. And I'll give him his due. Until I arrived, he didn't know what sort of diabetic I was, type 1, type 2, but he was brilliant. He was absolutely brilliant.
So it sounds like we all need a Joseph. I could do with a Joseph in my life, definitely.
Well, he does it 4 times a month. Literally during the season, it's 4 times a month, and he's a lovely, lovely guy. And unfortunately, Tanzania, where I was, is very, very poor, and they rely on the people going out there for tips and wages, and they are so attentive and just they're brilliant. And I'll be talking a bit more about how great they were. And without them, and especially Joseph, I wouldn't have got to the top. That's definite. And the actual night we went up to the summit, that was when I had my major issues, which I'll get to in a bit. So yeah, overall, the team were great. They were very attentive. They knew that I had the issue. I made it quite clear, you know, what was what, and literally the whole time I was with them, I tipped them very, very well. Believe you me.
Yeah, well, I mean, it sounds I mean that must have been really quite must have put you at ease a little bit, knowing that there was someone there essentially that was really gonna be your buddy, like, and look after you, because
That's
I
exactly.
can imagine.
Yeah, they did teach me a little bit of Tanzania as well,
Nice.
or Tanzanian. Yeah, so it was very, very good, very, very good. But we basically, we started off. The first day was rainforest, and it was a really easy walk. But even Joseph turned around and he said, "Right, we're going to go pole pole, which is slowly, slowly." And I said, "Well, it's not that bad." He said, "No, tomorrow you're going to be using huge amounts of energy, huge amounts of calories." And he said, "We've just got to take it slowly." And that's the word in Kilimanjaro is pole pole. You just go so slowly um, to conserve energy. But the first day was really easy. We went up through a rainforest. There was rain showers all of a sudden, and you had all your waterproofs on, but you were in shorts and t-shirts at that point, which was great. We saw loads of colobus monkeys, which were great because they were wild. They're up in the trees, and they were sort of following you as you were walking. Got to the camp that night. We were about just under 3,000 meters. I had an appetite, so I was just cracking on. They came and Abu cooked me, I think it was rice and chicken, and I had vegetables and fruit for afters. It's very sort of nice carbohydrate amount, um, lots of energy in there, and that was brilliant. The problem is, once I got over 3,000 meters, I couldn't eat.
Was that from altitude sickness? Was it,
It wasn't altitude sickness. The higher you go, the less you have an appetite.
right? Okay.
And the problem is, on this trip, there should have been 4 people that turned up. I was the only one that turned up, so I couldn't even hide the fact I wasn't eating because they were cooking just for me. So every night, these meals, after the first day, these meals were turning up, and I couldn't eat them. I could not eat the meals. It's like nothing wrong with them. The food was amazing for what, the fact we're on the side of a mountain. But I just had no appetite. I didn't want to eat. So then the problem I'm having is I'm burning so many calories and using so much energy during the day. My blood sugar levels were dropping continuously. Funnily enough, my consultant at the hospital told me to keep my blood sugar levels at 14 the whole time I was there, and I didn't want to do that because I felt that's not the right way to being a diabetic. You don't want your blood sugars constantly at that sort of level.
No, of course.
So
Yeah.
I was running an average of about 7.5, which I was happy with. But then during the day, my blood sugar levels were dropping. And then, I was taking Dextrosol, and I will say I lived on Kendal mint cake, would you believe?
What is Kendall Mint? I've never heard of that. What is it?
It literally it literally 3 or 4 squares has 100 carbohydrates in it.
Oh, right. Sounds like something
And
I'd like.
it's like just a compact sugar stroke glucose, and it tastes quite nice actually because it's mint cake as well. It's lovely.
Oh, right. Nice.
But it's quite thin. But I had probably a kilo of that on me, and that's what I lived on. I couldn't eat. They knew I wasn't eating because I couldn't hide it with other people that were eating because I was on my own. So the chef came to see me and said, "Do you not like my food?" And I'm like, "It's nothing about me not liking it. I just don't want it."
Yeah.
Um, and that then started to concern me because I thought I can't just live on Kendal mint cake or Dextrosol. Um, so I was forcing fruit down me, which was easier to actually eat. I wasn't feeling sick. I wasn't feeling that I had altitude sickness. It was just literally my appetite disappeared completely. And if you look online and Google it, there's a lot of people that goes the same way with. And the problem is with burning the calories we were burning, I had to refuel. I was putting electrolytes in my drinks, sort of to try and help, just help, trying to get an appetite, drinking, and then sort of thinking, I'll eat now. Um, I managed to eat pancakes in the morning, which was obviously had carbohydrates in, but literally I was on Kendal mint cake for literally the whole time I was over 3,000 meters. Um, Joseph was very concerned. He said, "You've got to eat." I said, "I don't want to eat." He said, "You've got to eat." I said, "I can't eat." This was the argument we are having. And he was just like, "Look, you're a diabetic. You need to eat." And I'm like, I totally get that, Joseph, but I can't, I have no appetite at all. Um, so yeah, this went on for day after day. And then it was, I was feeling okay, but I was getting quite tired because you were walking for about 8 hours every day, and you were going up, down. We went up because you were acclimatizing. 1 minute you're at 2,700 meters, then you're at 3,000, then you're back down to 2,600, then you're up to 3,700 meters, then you come down to sort of 3,200, then you're up to 4,000 meters. And I said to him, "Look, I want to go on a safari, and my plane leaves the day after I get back from Kili. I want to do this a day early." And he just went, "Look, you're fit enough." He said, "But I'm worried about your eating." And I'm just like, "Right, so I'll try and sort it." So I was forcing food down myself that I just didn't want. Um, it becomes a struggle because you've got to eat, but you just don't want to. And it's something that I always have a great appetite. I never don't want food, but literally, I didn't want to touch food. It was just the last thing I wanted. Anyway, we got to the lava tower, which was 4,685 meters, and he said, "If you can get to that today, we're going to go for the summit tomorrow night." And I'm just like, right. So we got to 4,685 meters, which is because Kilimanjaro is a volcano, and we got to the lava tower, and we stopped, and the guys had their lunch, and they cooked for me, but I didn't eat it again. And then from there we went up to Barafa camp, which is base camp Kili. And we'd just done an 8-hour trip up to there, and he said, "Right, you've got till midnight." This was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. He said, "You've got till midnight, then we're off for the summit." He said, "It's a 14 and a half hour hike."
Oh,
So just before we left for the summit, a packet of biscuits appeared, and I managed to eat them. Funnily enough, I just couldn't eat stodgy, like normal pastry stuff that I normally eat. So I started eating the biscuits, and at midnight we actually set off, and it was a storm force 10 gale blowing. It almost blew me off the side of the mountain. It was that strong. And we got onto the start of the ascent to the actual summit, and my blood glucose alarm went off, and we stopped, and it had gone down to 3.6. So I was eating loads of Kendal mint cake. We then set off again, and for about 4 hours, I couldn't get my blood sugar levels above 4. So I mean, I don't know whether you feel the same, but I started to feel tired. I started to feel lethargic. I would say 80% of Kilimanjaro is all in there. It's your brain says, you cannot do this, you cannot do this. And that's where they call it hitting a wall, because when I ran the London Marathon, I hit mine at 22 miles and it was like, that's it, I'm done. And my brain was telling my body I couldn't do it, but you get through it. And in the end, Joseph turned around to me and said, right, we're stopping for half an hour, Steve. You are going to eat everything you can get in your mouth, and I'm not going to move from here until your blood sugar level's over 10. And I'm like, really? And he's like, yeah. So half an hour, I was eating Kendal, and we're talking 100 carbs for every packet, and I had 6 packets of Kendal mint cake, so 600 carbs. And eventually, my blood sugar got up to 12, and he said, right, now we're going to move. Within 2 hours, it dropped back down to just under 4 again. And I just thought, this is not good, because I still had about another 3 hours to go to get to the summit. And that was the moment I thought, I'm not going to do this. So again, Joseph turned around, right, we're going to stop again, and you're going to eat. So that's what happened. It was quite frightening, to be honest, because I'd never had an incident where your alarm goes off, you have, I don't know, 4 jelly babies or 4 Dextrosols, and suddenly your sugar's back up to 5, 6, 7 and rising, and you're thinking, yep, I'm good now. It didn't happen. It did not happen. And that's when I thought, I'm going to fail this. I'm going to fail. And my brain was like, yeah, give up, give up. And I sort of turned around to Joseph and said, mate, I think I'm done. He said, you're not done. He said, you're not done. You're coming with me, and I'm going to the top, so you're going to be here on your own. And he wouldn't have done it, but so we stopped again for half an hour. I was piling Kendal mint cake, Dextrosol, anything that would go in. And I think it was 7 o'clock in the morning. We got to what I thought was the summit, and my legs were just destroyed. My feet were hurting. It was minus 22 degrees. The wind was absolutely rattling round, and I said, is this the summit? He went, no, it's another kilometre up there and there's 3 more hills. And I'm just like, it's brutal. And it goes on and on and on and on. And in the end, we got to the top, and I sat there, and I didn't feel anything. I didn't feel elated. I didn't feel excited. I didn't feel like I'd accomplished anything. It was just, I think, pure exhaustion, to be honest. And, you know, there was a lot of people on the way, a lot younger than me, that had given up and gone back. And I just thought, I've done it. I'm a type 1 diabetic. I've had it 40 years. I've smashed it. And then he said, Kilimanjaro hasn't had its final say yet. And I'm like, what do you mean? He said, we've got to go down. And I'm like, it can't be as bad as coming up, because literally when you get towards the top, you zigzag and zigzag and zigzag. And because you're wearing a headlight, you look up and you can see everyone else's headlight, and they just go on for hours. But we got to this plateau, got to the top, was great. We then walked down past the glaciers, which was amazing. And then there was just a slope going down really, really steep, which was just scree. It was just loose rock and rubble. My knees had just about had enough. My hips were like, oh, this is, and you literally fall all the way down to base camp again. And it was insane. It really, really was. But when we got to base camp, the guys sort of said, do you want anything to eat? I'm like, no, I can't eat, because we're still at 4,800 meters. And I managed to eat some biscuits, which was great. And then we had another 8-hour walk back down to the final camp before we ended the following day. And the pathway was like a cobblestone, but they're all different levels. So it was uncomfortable the whole way. I will say that my feet My toes were absolutely black, and I mean bruised. I'd done all the walking in my boots. The boots I had were brilliant, but I've still got bruised toenails. And you've got to be careful of your feet. And yeah, it's not an easy thing. People sort of think it's just a walk up a mountain, but it's there's no what's the saying? There's no glory in climbing a mountain if all you want to do is get to the top. It's
Yeah.
how you get there that counts. And that is the most truthful thing I've ever heard, because Kili is actually 500 meters higher than base camp Everest, and that is a trek in itself to get to base camp. So yeah, overall it was brutal, but it was also amazing. You go through 5 different climates, from rainforest, you go through like desert, you go through a plateau, you go through glaciers. There's 5 different climates on the way up there, and the views are incredible. Um, the experience are incredible. The bond that you make with your team as well was just amazing. They were brilliant, and they helped me along the way massively. Um, there was one bit where we were climbing the Barranco wall, which I didn't realize is almost a vertical um, face of a cliff, and you are bouldering and hanging on for dear life as you're going up it. And one of the porters dropped a 20-kilo pack, and it hit me and knocked me off the rock I was on. And I fell and twisted my ankle, and that was like, oh my god, this hurts. And so they helped me up to, because I could hardly walk on my right leg, got me up to the camp, and obviously I had painkillers and stuff. But yeah, it's brutal, but I'd
Sounds like
recommend
it.
it to anybody. I'd
Yeah.
recommend it. I wouldn't do it
So,
again.
yeah, it's not. To be honest, you're not selling it to me, Steve. um,
But I think the fact I don't consider myself any different to anyone else that's got diabetes. Sorry, anyone else without
yeah,
diabetes. I think I can do what they can do. I can achieve what they can achieve. It's just that sometimes along the way we have a little bit of a peak and trough that we
yeah.
have to deal with. You know, and I've got to the stage now where I want to keep pushing it and pushing it. I've jumped out of aeroplanes. That was great. I've swum with sharks, silver tip sharks in Florida. I've been very, very lucky that I've had the opportunity to do these things. And I just keep wanting to push myself. But I don't know what else I can do now, because I don't think anything would give me the emotion I felt over those 6 or 7 days of. It felt quite lonely being, because the other guys were all speaking Tanzanian. I did learn a little bit of the language. Joseph did speak quite good English, um, but you do feel quite lonely,
Mm.
because you don't have the banter that you get when you're with your mates, so to
Yeah.
speak. Um, yeah, so it was quite lonely. When I came back, it took me probably 3 weeks to get back to normal. I was very quiet. I was very inner, and yeah, it was quite tough. And I've been eating like a horse since I've been back. I just want to eat everything I see, which doesn't help with the diabetes. But yeah, it was something that I wouldn't do again, but I'm glad that I did it.
No, I mean, amazing accomplishment. Couple of questions that will come to mind. So, well, first thing, I've got a good challenge. If you've got a bike, have you got a bike?
I do. I've done Antor Stiniog in Snowdon, if you know it. I'm more of a
Well, no,
downhiller.
Snowden, yeah, but
Yeah, downhill biking. Yeah,
yeah, nice. So we're
and go
doing the
uphill.
coast to coast next year. Yeah, next year. So I can't remember what way around it is, but it's about 150 miles. So anyway, I'll talk to you offline. But that could be
Yeah,
that could be your next challenge. So you'd be
yeah,
more
I'll
than
do
welcome
that.
to.
I'll do that. Yeah, because I'm
Cool.
also looking at the Western Way up in Scotland, where you go from Glasgow to Fort William walking.
Oh yeah, I think that's meant to be a good. Yeah, I think that's meant to
And
be really good.
obviously I wouldn't do it. You can't wild camp in Scotland, but there's a trip you can book where you have a team that, well, it's not a team, it's a car that takes your main bag from lodge to lodge, and then you walk up through Loch Lomond past Ben Nevis, and that's something that is on my radar as well, I think. But
Nice.
it's just, I don't know. I mean, I said this to Andrew when we first spoke. I think there's three types of people in this world that say, like, you get told you're a diabetic. You get one group of people that just fall off a cliff and like think world's ending, the world's over, you can't do anything, you've got this illness, as people call it, even though it's not, and that's the end of it. Then you get the people that accept it and just carry on with life at normal, and then you get people that get it and think, right, I'm going to smash this. And I think I'm probably in the last group because I don't see it as holding me back, and I want to push it and push it and push it, but I just hope I don't end up pushing it too far, if you know what I mean.
No, yeah, no. I mean, you're good. You're in the right place. This is what we're all about. So, no, you're definitely in the right place. I just want to go back to. So there's a couple of things that spring to my mind. So, how was it? So, the first thing I wanted to ask was, you said your Libra worked all the way up with no issues, all the way even to the very top.
Right. I don't know. The Libra has been the best thing that's ever happened to me since I've had diabetes. I used to run at 7.5, 8.5 on my HbA1c. Since having it, I'm 6.5 on the dot every time. And I don't want to be any lower than that. And I don't want to be any higher than that. And I'm quite happy because you basically deal with it, but you become far too reliant on it. And that's what I've noticed, because the whole time I was in Tanzania, I didn't have one glitch with the Libra View. Since I've been back, I've put on two new pads that I got from the doctors, and none of them work with Bluetooth at the moment. And I don't know whether the updates I've just had on my iPhone has suddenly completely destroyed it. I don't know, but I had all, because the new Libra Views, they obviously give you a constant reading all the time. You don't have to scan it. You just look at your phone and it tells you what it is on the app. But I can't do that at the moment. The last two sensors I've had, I can scan them, but it doesn't give me alarms. It's just signal loss the whole time. And there seems to be glitches with them. And sometimes you get them working really, really well for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. And then suddenly you get three or four in a row that, they never fall off, because I see on Facebook there's a Libra group, and everyone's saying, "Oh, my sensor fell off." I've never had one fall off. You put them on, you do it properly. You don't moisturize before, or you don't put them on when they're wet. You do what, and I've never had a problem with them. But just recently, yeah, I've had no signals from my phones or alarms. Has anyone else had that
I
recently?
think I know what your problem is.
What's that?
You've got an iPhone.
Yeah.
I'm joking. I'm joking. No, seriously.
Sorry, carry on.
There'll be someone who'll be able to help you out with that. Definitely, we'll be able to help out with that. So yeah, we can talk about that offline, but we'll be able to sort that out. That's no I say we as in like the royal we, but there'll be someone that can help, definitely.
Yeah. Because I don't know whether it's just the update has kicked something out or done something or changed something. It's done it before, but when you phone Libra, you're on the phone for about an hour and they just do this, do that, do this, and then it normally doesn't work. But yeah, the actual Libra View over there was the best thing ever, because when you're warm, you're wearing t-shirts, it doesn't matter because the temperature's right. And when you're at -22, you've got 8 layers on that's keeping it warm, so it's no problem.
It's amazing. I think because this is another question I've got. Do you know how many Type 1s have completed Kilimanjaro? Do you know that?
I don't know how many there are, but I saw a text earlier that someone that can't be on the call tonight has done it as well. So I'd like to have a chat with him and see how he got
I think
on.
it's Paul. Is that Paul Coker? It is, isn't it? Yeah, Paul Coker. Yeah, so Paul Coker's done it. Because that's what we were speaking about it the other day, and he was saying he had lots of problems with I can't remember what he was using, but he said he basically had a nightmare of all his technology weren't working. So it's interesting to hear that yours worked no problem, which is good. So
yeah, no, there was no issues at all.
Yeah,
and
good.
people give you funny looks on the mountain when you're beeping and all the rest. I'll tell you one funny story about the mountain though. The first day in the rainforest, we're walking down the trail. There's me and Joseph, because the porters all go on ahead. And I went through a colony of black ants, okay, and they inject you with formic acid, which is very unpleasant. And I didn't think about it. I walked straight through it. And he went, "You've just gone through black ants." I went, "Yeah, I'm fine." Next thing I could feel, I could feel these pains going up my calves, and I'm like, "What's that?" And then it was on the front of on the back of my legs, then it was getting up to my knees, and then I turned around to Joseph and said, "Do these things bite?" He went, "They inject you with formic acid that is really uncomfortable." He said, "Have you got some in you?" I went, "I think I have, mate," because he said they go over your boots, straight up your trouser legs and up your legs, and then one of them was on my inner thigh at the top, and my pants and trousers came round my ankles in the middle of the trail, and I was covered in ants. And it was, I wasn't embarrassed. It was just like these things are coming off. It was probably, and there was people just going ants. I'm like, yeah. And
Yeah.
this is how it is when you're out doing these things. People just don't care. And in the end, they were like, "Do you want me to check if you got any?" I went, "No, I'm fine, thanks." So, I'm a little bit undressed here at the moment, but got rid of them all. But oh, they really hurt when they bite you. And then on the first night in camp, the camp got, I can't say attacked, we got visited by a colony of blue monkeys, and it was like a horror movie. It's obviously the moonlight's out, you're in a tent, and you can see these shapes like that, all around the tent. And I was in there on my own, and you're thinking, oh my god, and they're so loud. And basically, they could smell the food, so they were running around, sort of trying to find. And it was like a horror movie. Just seeing all these things running around your tent, when you're in the middle of, you know, middle of a mountain sort of thing. But definitely worth doing. Definitely.
It does sound really interesting. And then so what was it easy enough to do the insulin sort of like on the move and whatnot? There no issues with that.
No, I had. I mean, I'll be brutally honest. With using a pen, I'm probably going to get frowned at for this, but I inject through my jeans, I inject through my clothes. It literally, I put a fresh needle on, inject, that's it, throw it away. But there was no real issues out there. Everything was good. And for the first time in probably 20 years, I bought Medi swabs. Haven't used them for years. And it was a case of I found them online and I thought, well, because I'm in Africa, there's a lot, I'll just do it. And yeah, there was no issues at all, no problems with injection sites. So yeah, no problem at all. And it
Right.
didn't freeze either because they were also inside because I had obviously a polar jacket on and everything, and then fleeces, and they were in the fleece inside my polar jacket, and it didn't freeze. So it was all right. But it'll be the same with a pump, I imagine, if it's got insulin in it. I don't know how they work. So if I sound, you know, but if it's got insulin in the pump, then it won't freeze because you're all covered up. So that's a plus point. And I had 3 liters of water on my back because we were drinking 4 liters of water every day, and that froze solid. Probably about 2 hours before we got to the top.
Fair enough. So from a diabetes management perspective, really, it was fairly easy, wasn't it? So it doesn't sound like there's any major challenges, really, which I would have thought there would have been, but it sounds like no.
It was just the eating that was the major
Yeah,
challenge. That
yeah,
was my concern because, when I was hungry, but there's something I don't know when you get to a certain altitude, and I'll be interested to see whether that gentleman that's done it had the same problem when he did it, because literally it was almost like 3,000 meters, right? That's it. I don't want any food. And there was no reasoning for that at all. But that's how it was. And what's the most important thing for us diabetics when you're using energy is to refuel, isn't it?
yeah. For sure. Well, I mean, I imagine not I imagine, but I mean, even if you was type 1, obviously normal people would need to refuel as well, wouldn't they? So yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
And yeah, so overall, I would recommend it to anyone. And there's a few videos on YouTube, and even they on there saying that weren't diabetic said this is probably the hardest thing I've ever done, and I will agree with that 100%. If you want to push it to the limits, do Killy.
Amazing. Well, look, that was really good. Really, really interesting. Now there's some sort of a lot of things I didn't expect, and I'm really surprised, but pleased for you that you didn't have any like sort of diabetes challenge apart from the eating, of course. But yeah, what I imagined you was going to have issues with, you didn't. So that's I think that's reassuring. If anyone does fancy doing it, you should be all right from a type 1 perspective. So no, thank you for that. That was good.
No, that's all right. It's no problem.
So, guys, have we got any? So, in the audience, is there any questions for Steve? I know Mr. Big's firing himself up. I can see him. He's gonna.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, I don't know most. It's my first time on a call, so I don't know most of you.
Welcome.
But it was, yeah, it was. Thank you so much, Steven, because I am going to Chile in February, and I am feeling a bit anxious about like something happening to my sensor or incident freezing. So it's great to hear that nothing happened to yours. But I was just wondering, like, did you feel that the altitude interfered with your with how you're feeling with your blood sugars, or was it just the effort?
The altitude. I mean, I had Diamox when I went up there, so I was taking Diamox
Yeah.
to help with.
Did you take it midway or towards the end?
Right. They tell you to take it the day before you start, and then half a tablet morning and evening, and then 2 days after you come down. Again, my guide turned around to me and said, you take half a tablet the day we start. So when we get to the entrance, you take your tablet. Then in the evening, you take the tablet, but only half. And then as soon as you start the ascent, you stop taking it. The biggest problem with Diamox, and I'm sorry to have to say this, is it makes you urinate at night, which is the worst part.
Yeah.
So if you're going to take Diamox, again, this was a trick from my lead guide. You take it at 4 o'clock, because otherwise you'll be up and down all night. And I'll tell you one thing, I made one mistake when I was there. I went out to the toilet and it is pitch black. There's no lights, there's no like little fairy lights over it. It's pitch black. And I lost my tent. So I come out of the toilet and I didn't have a clue where I was going. I was so like, just, where am I? And in the end, I was walking around the camp for about 20, 25 minutes. And my chef was called Abu, right? And Abu is the boss, right? Everyone has to, whatever they do, they have to ask Abu. And luckily, all I heard was Abu, 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 and I followed it, and it got me back to my tent. But without that, I think I'd have had a very uncomfortable night, or I'd have got in someone else's tent, just gone in for the night. But
carrying everyone.
yeah, the Diamox, he recommended no later than 4 o'clock. You do want to drink more when you're taking Diamox. It didn't affect my diabetes as far as I'm aware. I was also taking Malarone for malaria, and that didn't seem to affect it. But what I will say to you, there is another type of malaria tablet, beginning with L, I think it is, but
Lariam.
I was I was advised not to take it by 3 people that I'd known that spent time in Africa. It can cause psychosis and depression.
Yeah, and the side effects are horrible with that one.
This is it. And I will say, even Diamox can cause certain, like, not mood swings, but it makes you feel a bit down. It makes you feel a bit sad sometimes. And Malarone, they all do it, but it stops you getting something that could be a lot more serious. But I found for the 3 weeks after I came back, I was very down and I felt very depressed.
Yeah.
And the only thing I can attribute that to, because I'm not a depressive type, I'm normally quite bubbly and buoyant, it was literally that medication. So, I mean, but the Diamox, some people get sick on it. I took it. I was quite happy with it. 4 o'clock in the evening, that's when you take it. And I imagine your guides will probably tell you that. But don't be anxious. Enjoy it, and you'll be pole, slowly, and it goes on forever. But you will see some amazing sights. You'll be above the clouds. You'll be looking down on the world and just thinking, "Wow, I'm up here." And good luck, and let us know how you get on.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really looking forward to it. Yeah, I'm starting to get a bit anxious now, but mostly excited.
No, you shouldn't. I mean, obviously, are you going with a group or are you going on your own?
I'm going with a friend, so it's the 2 of us, and she speaks Swahili, so hopefully, like, it can also help with her explaining to the guides, like anything diabetes related and
Yeah,
stuff like
they
that.
do speak good English, so you'll be all right with that. But do you know the most
Yeah.
amazing thing about Tanzania? They actually use Hakuna Matata.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Hakuna Matata is a, you know, all the time they use it. Amazing, amazing. You know, no worries. You know, caribou. They constantly teach you different words as you're there, and it does build
Yeah.
a good relationship between them. But enjoy it, and you'll have a great time.
Thank you. Well, I might reach out to you if I have like any questions,
Yeah,
if
any
that's okay.
questions, just send me a text or whatever. That's not a problem. I can answer anything you want. And you know, don't overthink it, because I overthought all of my equipment. And to be honest, I was on my own. There was no showers. People didn't really care if you smelled. I didn't have a shower
Yeah.
for 7 or 8 days. You had to wash every day. And you know, I ended up wearing the same t-shirt for 3 days running, the same walking trousers for three. No one cares because everyone does it.
No one cares. Yeah. I'm
No
just
one
currently
cares.
agonizing over which pair of shoes to get. So, but
Well, the shoes have to be worn in, especially if you're diabetic with your feet.
yeah.
They have to be worn in. You have to do lots of walking in them and just wear them all the time. And just no cotton at all.
No, yeah.
No cotton.
Smart wool, I'm told.
Merino wool is good, very
Yeah.
expensive, but very, very good. But no cotton, because once it gets wet. Although saying that, my guide climbed it in jeans.
Yeah, but he does it 4 times a month. So
He does, and yeah. So no cotton. That's the only recommendation I'll give you. And lots of layers on the final night when you ascend. You know, you want like a compression top, a t-shirt, a fleece, and you know, a shell jacket, then a good polar jacket over the top, and you'll be fine. Because there's so much exertion going up that final bit, and I'll be interested to see how you fare with your blood sugars on that, and also your eating, because I don't know whether that was just me or whether that's normal.
yeah, I hadn't thought about the appetite part, but yeah, I'll definitely be reporting back, hopefully
And if you
mid-Feb.
yeah, if you look online, there is a blog. I think there was 19 diabetics went up Kilimanjaro, but they had consultants and nurses and all sorts with them. And
Okay.
it's a very, very good read. I can't give you if I can find the link, I'll post it onto the
Yeah,
page. But
I'll look for it. Thank you.
it's a very, very good link, and they do give you a lot of advice. And I took a lot of advice from that as well.
Yeah.
So it's well worth looking.
And I'll definitely be buying your cakes as well. So thanks a lot for the tip.
No problem. No problem.
Amazing. Right, we've got
Steve,
another.
I
So
think
we'll
that
get
might be cool.
AT. I don't know your name, but
Oh.
you can do the next
So,
call in February.
sorry, my name is Ararat.
Hello there.
Okay,
Ararat.
perfect. So you're booked in for February to do your call, okay?
Yeah.
Post Kilimanjaro. Cool. We'll put that. All right. Right. I'm going to read out some questions in the chat. So there's one question here from Adam, and he's asking anything you would do different on the ascent in hindsight. Re carb to insulin ratios, and I guess he means your insulin sort of management.
Do you want to know the truth?
You're going to say no, aren't you?
I didn't actually inject once on the way up there.
Oh, right. Wow.
No, because literally everything I ate was burnt. It was gone. Literally, my blood sugar levels were low. So I was just I didn't inject once the whole 6 days, as in my short acting insulin, my
Yeah.
human. So there's another weird thing, because I've never had that before in life. And you couldn't eat enough to have to overcome it by taking the injection. That's how I was. Not everyone's going to be the same, but I didn't actually inject short acting. The Tracebo, my long acting in the evening, I took 30 units. I was thinking, do I drop that because my blood sugar levels are so low? But I don't like fiddling with it because I don't know enough about it. My doctor says, oh, you need to drop it now because of your spikes here, your spikes there. But I don't have enough knowledge to do it myself. So I carried on just chucking 30 units in every night. But I didn't actually inject my short acting once on the ascent.
Fair enough. Yeah, that sort of makes sense to me. So no, that's interesting. But no, okay, fair enough. Right, let me try and go in order. So let me ask Andrew, and then you're up next, Henry. All right. So Andrew's asking, how did you manage to cope with the range of emotions you experienced during the climb?
You spend, if you're in a tent on your own, you do spend a lot of time alone, and there's a lot of time for thinking. I actually took a couple of books with me and I just read. That's what I did. I was in my tent reading. They give you a light. Mentally, it is very, very tough. There's always the 20-80%. It's like when you do a long run, a lot of it is mental.
Yeah.
Your brain's telling your body you can't do it, you stop. Your brain's telling your body, I'm going to do this. It does it. And there's certain points where you will hit a wall. You will hit that barrier that's telling you, right, that's it, you're done. Give up, stop. And as I said, I felt that when my blood sugar levels just wouldn't raise above the 4. And I sort of blame that more on the hypo feeling than my mental state as such.
Yeah, sure.
But when I came down and I phoned my partner, I got really emotional. It was weird. It was like the day after I'd finished it, I got back, phoned her up, and I was in bits. There's no rhyme or reason, but on the way up there, I was all smiles and happy and trying to, make sure that I wasn't letting myself get down. But the lady that's going to do the climb in February, that final push up to Uhura Peak, that's when you need all of your mental strength without fail. So you've got to build up to it and build up to it, and that's where you've got to be really positive and concentrate on it and pole.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, you're completely right. It's anyone that's been on these calls regularly enough will know that I'm always banging on about mindset. 95% my mindset, 5% strategy. Always will be.
Yeah.
It's always going to be the way it is. I was about to say team top one style. Henry, you're up. Team top one style, go on.
I can go with team type 1 style. That is us. So I guess I was trying to get my head around the nutrition point of view because it sounds very much like from a diabetes management point of view, you didn't have too many issues,
Yeah.
but you did have a lot of nutrition issues. So I kind of I was trying to get around some of the numbers. So at 5,000 calories a day, you should have been having the equivalent of kind of 1,200 grams of carbohydrate a day. Given that probably 50% of a normal diet when you're not doing exercise is kind of carbohydrate, you should have probably been eating 600 plus grams of carbohydrate a day. So I was just intrigued to know how far off that you think you were in reality, but also then what the knock-on consequences were. So kind of, the days you flew back, how long was it until you think your body kind of returned to normal from that monster, what sounded like kind of a huge glycogen deficit, which contributed towards your insulin sensitivity?
Yeah. Well, after living on Kindle mint cake for most of the 6 days, which I probably won't eat again because I've had enough of it, I got back to the hotel from the mountain and I walked straight into the bar, still in all my gear, covered in crap, covered in dust, covered in whatever was out there. I walked into the restaurant. I went, 2 of your biggest pizzas, please, and 3 beers, right? And they came out with these 2 pizzas, and literally, I was under 3,000 meters. I was only at 898 meters there, and I did the 2 pizzas without stopping. Then I had 3 beers, and I just sat there and thought, that feels good. And then I came home, and I literally, probably for 2 weeks after that, my appetite was just insatiable. I'd lost so much weight. People were telling me, you got to put weight back on. You got to put weight back on. So the problem then was I was eating, but then I was having to inject more to cope with it. So you go from nothing to, it's like 0 to 60 in a second. As soon as I came off that van back to the hotel, I was on it. And literally after that, I've been eating, for 2 or 3 weeks, just non-stop. And it's not ideal, but it does affect your body. The height does affect your body. It affects, and that link I was telling you about with the diabetics that actually climbed the mountain, there was people there saying that their insulin regime changed massively, that it wasn't working as well with food. It wasn't, keeping their levels where they were. Some people were the other way. They're injecting too much, but they thought they're injecting right. So I think it does affect everybody differently.
Oh, definitely. And it's not
and
one of them. It's not one of them things you can get a trial run at, is it? Well, you could do,
No.
but then you'd have to do it twice.
No, and it's like, it just seemed to be that threshold of 3,000 meters where it all went pear shaped, because it literally, there's nothing else apart from that made the change. Like, that's it. I don't want to eat. And
I think there's a couple of things there. So it's kind of like there was that altitude bit of kind of going, your appetite disappeared, but also there's a couple of good studies that show there's two main contradicting studies about altitude and insulin sensitivity. One that's very positively shows about at high altitude as much as kind of 50% reduction in insulin requirements. So you become really insulin sensitive.
Yeah.
But there's another study then contradicts that actually shows quite an increase in insulin. So I wonder if for you had the double whammy effect of not being able to eat, increased insulin sensitivity from not being able to eat, and the altitude, which just completely meant you didn't need anything other than those 30 units.
I know, and this, and I'll never really know that, because I don't really know enough. I don't know enough as I probably should with 40 years experience, but I just live my life day to day. I do things, and I've now got a machine that tells me whether I'm right or wrong. And I've become lazy. I have become lazy, and I'll admit that I'm sort of like, if it's not on, or it falls off, or it fails, I'm lost. I get my old blood testing kit out. It's like, oh God, how archaic is this?
I think that's the advantages of the kind of advancements in technology, though, is not that it's making us lazy. I don't think lazy is the right word, but it's normalizing it so that we can live normal, happy, healthy lives where we don't have to think about it or focus on it. But like you, when it goes peak Tong, it really does go wrong, and before you know it, you feel like a fish out of water.
Yeah, that's
whatever
it.
That expression is.
But yeah, I mean, it is. It was the unknown as well, and I love the unknown. I like being out of my comfort zone, and I didn't know how it was going to react. You can sit there and read blogs, and you can get, oh my god, and but I read an awful lot before I went on people that had done it with diabetes, and there were so many different stories. It was incredible, and I think everyone has a different experience. You walk the same route, but your body, mind, and soul is just everyone's different, and I think everyone will have different things. It's like the lady that's on this call. She may get a better appetite when she's above 3,000 meters. She might have to inject more because she's above 3. I think everyone has a different story at the end of it, and that's what I love about these things.
I guess in a feat like this as well, there's so many different variables. So, we'll look at this from a diabetes point of view, but you've got you've got the temperature, you've got what was the weather, was there a prevailing wind on the way up? All those little things which then have a knock-on consequence of your diabetes management.
Yeah, I will say, I mean, I was lucky, because in the rainforest, it didn't rain once, where normally in October it rains every day. So I thought, this is great. Then it normally rains on the 3rd and 4th day, and I had all my wet weather gear, and it rained for about 10 minutes. And then we got to the top, and once the sun came up, the temperature rose really, really quickly. So I think I had a good trip, to be honest. I had a good trip weather-wise, and who knows, had it been soaking wet and you're feeling cold, you just don't know. I think I was very, very lucky that everything was so perfect while I was out there. And October is one of the best times to climb it, but it's also one of the busiest. And I think February, when that lady's going, is a good time to do it as well. So I hope she sorts it and gets up there.
Amazing, Steve. That is. But I've really enjoyed that.
Thank you.
Really. Sorry, was there another question there? No.
No, saying thank you for the well wishes.
Oh yeah. Good luck. Yeah, good luck. And like I say, keep us posted. We'd definitely like to have you on to be good to get a comparison. So yeah, no, look, Steve, appreciate your time, mate. That was really good, really beneficial. I took a lot away from that, and I can confirm I'm definitely not going to be doing Kilimanjaro anytime soon. So thank you for that. Yeah, cheers, guys. Look, we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you. Cheers. Thank you.